My life felt like a stack of precariously balanced plates. One wrong move, one deep breath, and the whole thing would come crashing down. I was a single mom, a title I never asked for, to a bright, beautiful 7-year-old boy named Leo. His father, Mark, had been the sun in our small universe. When a heart attack took him 2 years ago, it felt like the sun had just blinked out, leaving us in a cold, perpetual twilight. We lived in a third-floor apartment with paper-thin walls and a landlord who communicated exclusively through threatening notes taped to our door. The rent was a monster that ate half my paycheck before I even saw it. I worked as a waitress at a 24-hour diner, a job that was a blur of coffee pots, sticky tables, and tired smiles. I'd come home smelling of grease and cheap air freshener, my feet aching, just in time to kiss Leo goodnight. Most days, I felt like I was running a marathon that had no finish line. The dream, Mark's and mine, had always been a house. Not a mansion, just a small place with a patch of green for a yard. A place where Leo could run without me yelling, "Keep it down, the neighbors will complain." A place where we could paint a wall a ridiculous color just because we wanted to. After Mark was gone, that dream felt like a cruel joke. The small life insurance policy he'd left was our emergency fund, a sacred pot of money I was too terrified to touch. One Tuesday, while scrolling through real estate listings on my phone. During a slow lunch break, a form of self-torture I couldn't seem to quit, I saw it. It was a joke, it had to be. A 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. Price, $20,000. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. $20,000. You couldn't even buy a new car for that. The pictures were terrible. The house was a pale, peeling yellow, slumped a little to one side like an old man dozing in a chair. The yard was a jungle of weeds, and a shutter hung crooked over one of the front windows, giving it a winking, mischievous look. The description was brutally honest: sold as is. Needs significant TLC. Cash offers preferred. My heart, that tired old muscle, gave a strange little flutter. It was a wreck. A disaster. A money pit waiting to swallow someone whole. But it was a house. And it was $20,000. The emergency fund was $25,000. I called the number. The realtor, a man named Mr. Henderson who sounded like he'd been smoking since the dawn of time, was skeptical. "Ma'am, I have to be honest with you. This isn't a fixer-upper, it's a resurrection. The last owner passed away years ago, and her kids just want it off their hands." "I'd still like to see it," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. My sister, Clara, thought I'd lost my mind. "Sarah, you can't. What if the foundation is cracked? What if the roof caves in? You and Leo will be homeless, and that money will be gone." She was right. Every logical part of my brain screamed that she was right. But the image of Leo, cooped up in our tiny apartment, drawing pictures of a house with a big, smiling sun above it, that image was louder than logic. A few days later, Mr. Henderson met me and Leo at the property. It was worse in person. The air smelled of damp earth and decay. But as I stood on the cracked sidewalk, I saw something else, too. I saw a porch swing where that broken shutter was. I saw a vegetable garden in that mess of weeds. And Leo? He wasn't seeing the rot. He was seeing an adventure. "Mom, it's a castle," he whispered, his eyes wide. Mr. Henderson unlocked the door, and it groaned open like a coffin. The inside was a time capsule. Dust motes danced like fairies in the slivers of light cutting through grimy windows. Furniture, draped in white sheets, stood like ghosts in the living room. The wallpaper, a pattern of faded roses, was peeling away in long, curling strips. It was overwhelming, but underneath the grime, the house had good bones. The floors were solid hardwood, the layout was simple and sweet, and the main bedroom had a big window that looked out onto a sprawling, ancient oak tree in the backyard. Leo ran through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing, his laughter filling the silent space. For the first time in 2 years, the house didn't feel empty. I turned to Mr. Henderson, my heart pounding in my throat. "I'll take it." The process was a nightmare of paperwork and second thoughts. Every night I'd lie awake, convinced I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I was gambling our entire future on a feeling. But then I'd look at Leo, sleeping peacefully, and I'd know I had to try. The day I got the keys felt both terrifying and triumphant. We had almost no money left for renovations, just my meager savings from tips I'd stashed in a coffee can. It would have to be enough. Our first few weeks were a whirlwind of sweat and dirt. My dad came over on weekends, showing me how to spackle and paint. Clara, despite her reservations, brought us pizza and helped me scrub floors until my hands were raw. Leo was my little supervisor, helping by painting a few pictures on the wall that I would later have to paint over, his face beaming with pride. We started with his room. We peeled back the old wallpaper and painted the walls a bright, cheerful blue, the color of a summer sky. I bought a second-hand bed frame and a new mattress. The night he slept in his own room, in his own house, for the very first time, I tucked him in and he looked up at me with those big, serious eyes. "We have a real home now, Mom," he said. Tears pricked my eyes. "Yeah, buddy," I whispered, my voice thick. "We do." It was hard, grueling work. There were moments of despair. A leaky pipe under the kitchen sink flooded the floor one night, and I sat on the damp linoleum and just cried, completely overwhelmed. But every small victory, a freshly painted wall, a window that opened without a fight, a working toilet, felt like winning a championship. We were slowly, painstakingly, breathing life back into this forgotten old house. The discovery happened about 2 months in. I had finally worked my way to the master bedroom. It was the last room to be cleaned out. The previous owner, an elderly woman named Eleanor Vance, had left behind her bed, a heavy oak dresser, and a small writing desk. I'd spent the day clearing it all out, preparing to strip the wallpaper. I was on my hands and knees, scrubbing the floorboards near where the bed had been. My whole body ached. I was tired down to my bones, and a familiar flicker of doubt was creeping back in. Had I done the right thing? This house was taking everything I had. As I pushed my weight onto a section of the floor, I heard a faint squeak and felt a slight give. I stopped scrubbing and pushed again. One of the floorboards was loose. It wasn't rotten, just not nailed down properly. Curiosity got the better of me. I wedged my fingers into the seam and pried it up. It came away with a soft groan of old wood. Underneath, nestled in the dark, dusty space between the joists, was a metal box. It was an old cash box, the kind you'd see in a black and white movie, painted dark green with a simple latch on the front. It wasn't locked. My heart started to beat a frantic rhythm against my ribs. What on earth? Old photos? A forgotten keepsake. My hands trembled as I lifted the box out. It was heavy. I sat back on my heels, the smell of lemon cleaner and old dust filling my nose, and I unhooked the latch. The lid creaked open. I think I stopped breathing. The box was filled with money. Stacks of it, bundled neatly with old paper bands. 50s. Hundreds. It wasn't a pirate's treasure, but to me, it might as well have been. My mind couldn't even begin to process the amount. But tucked on top of the money was a thick, yellowed envelope. My name wasn't on it. Instead, in elegant, looping cursive, were the words, "To the one who makes this house a home again." My hands shook so badly I could barely open it. Inside were several folded pages, the paper brittle with age. I unfolded the first one. It was a letter. To it began. "If you are reading this, then it means my time has passed, and this old house has found a new family. I hope it treats you kindly. My name is Eleanor Vance, and I lived my entire life within these walls. My husband, Arthur, built this house for me as a wedding gift in 1956. He laid every floorboard, hammered every nail. He used to say the house had his sweat, but my heart mixed right into the plaster. We never had children of our own. It was a sadness we carried, but we filled this house with love all the same. We had nieces and nephews, neighborhood kids, and a long line of scruffy dogs. We hosted countless holiday dinners and summer barbecues. We grew old together on the porch. Swing Arthur built, the one that probably rotted away long before you arrived. Arthur was a careful man. He didn't trust banks much after the Great Depression scared his parents so badly. Every week, for over 50 years, he would take a little bit of his paycheck and tuck it away in this box. He called it our rainy day and sunshine fund. It was for emergencies, but it was also for a dream. We were going to travel the world when he retired. See the pyramids in Egypt, the canals of Venice. But life has a funny way of changing your plans. Arthur's heart gave out before we could ever buy the tickets. He passed away right in this room, in the bed that probably stood where you are now. After he was gone, the house felt too quiet. I couldn't bring myself to spend the money. It was his money, our dream. So I just left it here. I told my nieces about it, but they're well off and told me to do as I pleased. I suppose I hoped that one day, someone would come to this house who needed a bit of sunshine after a long rain. Someone who saw the heart in these old walls, not just the peeling paint. Someone who would fill these rooms with laughter again. I don't know your story. I don't know your struggles. But I know what it's like to feel your world shrink, to feel a little bit lost. This money was saved with love. Please, use it with love. Fix the roof. Plant a garden. Pay for your child's education. Take a trip. Buy yourself a new porch swing. Make new memories here. Consider it a gift from me and Arthur. A welcome to the neighborhood, from one family to another. With warmest wishes, Eleanor Vance. I finished the letter, and the tears I'd been holding back finally broke free. They weren't tears of sadness or exhaustion. They were tears of overwhelming, gut-wrenching gratitude. I sat there on the dusty floor of my new home, clutching a letter from a woman I'd never met, and I sobbed. I sobbed for her loss, for her kindness, for the unbelievable, impossible gift she had left behind. After a while, I slowly, carefully, counted the money. It was just over $85,000. $85,000. A number so large it felt imaginary. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. It was a new roof. It was new plumbing and wiring. It was a college fund for Leo. It was a safety net, a real one, a wide, strong net that meant I would never again have to feel like I was walking a tightrope. The next day, I called Mr. Henderson. I had to tell someone who would understand. When I explained what I'd found, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Well, he finally rasped, his voice thick with emotion. I knew Eleanor. She was a sweet lady. Stubborn as a mule, but sweet. Sounds just like something she would do. News travels fast in a small town. When I hired a local contractor to start work on the roof, the story came out. People I'd only ever served coffee to at the diner would stop me, their eyes wide. Is it true? They'd ask. The story became a piece of local folklore, the single mom who bought the old Vance place and found a fortune. Everyone was shocked, yes. My sister cried on the phone for 10 minutes straight. My dad just kept shaking his head and smiling. But the person who was most shocked was me. I was shocked every morning when I woke up, not in a state of panic, but in a state of peace. We used the money just as Eleanor suggested. A new roof went on first, then we had the whole house rewired and the old, leaky pipes replaced. We bought new windows that kept the cold out. We installed a brand new kitchen. I didn't go crazy. I bought modest, practical things. But for the first time, I wasn't buying the cheapest option. I was buying the one that would last. I opened a college savings account for Leo and deposited a hefty sum that made the bank manager's eyebrows shoot up. I paid off the few small debts I had lingering from Mark's medical bills. I quit the second job I'd picked up on weekends and started working a normal 40-hour week at the diner. The biggest change, though, wasn't the money. It was the weight that had been lifted off my soul. I could breathe again. I could sleep through the night. I could look at my son and not feel a constant, gnawing fear about his future. The last thing I bought was a porch swing. I hired a local carpenter to build one, a sturdy wooden one, big enough for two. The day he installed it, Leo and I sat on it together, gently rocking back and forth as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The house stood behind us, no longer slumped and sad, but proud and strong, its new yellow paint glowing in the evening light. Eleanor and Arthur used to sit here, I told Leo, who was snuggled up against my side. Are they the ghosts who gave us the money? He asked, his voice sleepy. I smiled, looking out at the yard where a new patch of green grass was starting to grow. No, honey. They're not ghosts. They're our angels. And in that quiet moment, I felt it. The house wasn't just wood and nails and plaster anymore. It was a living thing, infused with the love of the family that came before us. Eleanor and Arthur's dream of seeing the world didn't die with them. It just changed. Their dream became our reality. It became Leo's future. It became our home. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that we would honor their gift by filling these walls with a lifetime of our own sunshine.